Hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi. Thank you so much for joining us again in another episode of this wonderful series called Mecca, A Search for a Place. Last time, we began to make sense of all the data that has been shared with you. But today, really, I want to ask this fundamental question. With us here, of course, is Dr. J to continue unpacking all of this and making sense of this data. Dr. J, our Muslim friends, I grew up a Muslim. The 7th century is such a big deal, right? I mean, it has to do with the origin of Islam, it has to do with the birth of Muhammad, it has to do with the collection of the Quran, it has to do with the existence of Mecca. So where did this 7th century thing come from? There has to have been something going on at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. No one's going to shirk and walk away from it. We have said that all the time, over and over again. We're not interested in the 8th. I mean, we are interested in the 8th for other reasons, but we're not interested in the 9th and 10th century. That's what we're not interested in. We are interested in the 7th and 8th, because to see and understand the origins of Islam, you need to go back to the 7th and 8th. But to talk about Mecca, especially Mecca, a place that supposedly is all the way there from the time of Adam and Eve, you've got to go with not only the 7th century, but even before. So let's now zero in on the 7th century, and let's see what history tells us about the 7th century. So let's look at this map. Let's go up and look at the slide again. There were 3 great empires in the 7th century. To understand what happened then, we must begin with the 2 great empires of that time, the Byzantine that you see here in the green here, and the Sassanid that you see there in orange. So Byzantine over here, Sassanid over here. This is what we know as the Persians. Those are the Christians. These are Zoroastrian, Christian, Zoroastrian, Byzantine, Sassanid, or people call it sometimes Sasanian, Sassanid. They're both the same thing. So 2 completely different empires that were very strong. They were the 2 strongest ones in the 7th century, leading up into what we now know today. Now, in 622, the Byzantines, having been fighting back and forth for 200 years, from the 5th, 6th, and 7th century, they finally defeat the Sassanids about 622. Isn't that interesting, the date 622? Ooh. Hold on to that. Yeah. By doing that, they took off the mantle of the Sassanians upon the Arabs who lived in this area. The Arabs all lived up in here, and they all lived over here, and they were Christians. The Sassanians, or the Sassanids, were Zoroastrian. They had been persecuted and dominated by the Persians for hundreds of years. So the Byzantines helped them out because they destroyed. But the Byzantines really weren't concerned with this area. They were more concerned with this area here. And so by doing that and destroying the Sassanids, that gave rise to all these city-states. These city-states, when we look at the coins, remember we looked at the coins? Right. We noticed that they were still making coins because most of the coins either came from this area up here, let's look at the map here, that area, or this area here, but not down here, nothing from down here. No coins, no mints, nothing from down here. Why? Because this was all barren land, desert. And you can see the empires don't include this area. These 2 great empires, why aren't they there? Where's an empire? There is no empire here at all. So the coins reflect that. The inscriptions, remember we talked about the inscriptions? Where do all the inscriptions take place? Way up here, right, and over here again. This is where the inscriptions are, but mostly here. And these inscriptions, there's a few down here in the Hadramaut area, but most of them are up here, and they're all in Nabatean Aramaic.
And that's where Ahmed al-Jallad have been focusing a lot of his research in those areas.
That's why, because you have to go where the evidence is. You have to go where the artifacts are. You can't go where there's no artifacts. There's nothing to look at. If you want to look at Arabic, you've got to go to the inscriptions on the rocks, because there's no there's no manuscripts today that exist from the 7th century. And look, the Muslims have been trying, for 25 years I've been asking the question, can you show me where there's this Uthmanic manuscript that you keep talking about? They can't come up with one manuscript from the 7th century because none existed. Not that early, and certainly not that far south. So when you look and see how the Byzantines destroyed the Sassanids, leaving the Arabs now to start to create their identity. They needed an identity because they saw themselves not as Zoroastrians. They actually aligned themselves more with the Christians and the Jews because their identity is Christian and Jew. Now, they go back to Abraham along with the Ishmaelites, and many of them were Ishmaelites. But they go back to Abraham, and that's where they found their cousins were the Christians and Jews. So 622, hugely important. Since we don't have any historical references for any Muslim caliphate at all from 622 to 661, it's not on the coins, it's not on any inscription. We've already done that. We've already debunked all the references to Muhammad. So we're not going to repeat that. But we saw that from the Ladhab, so we cannot find Muhammad anywhere in this part of the world at all. All right, Ilyas ibn Qabisa is the best you can get, and he's from way up here. He's from right here in Hira, which now today is called Kufa. Lakhmit. He's a Christian. And then he moves possibly over to Petra later on in his life. So that is all further north. So
could that be possibly in 622 when he did that move?
Well, it happens. We know that the first battles happen in 618 up to 619. In 622 is when finally the Byzantines destroy the Sassanids. So, of course, he's part of that whole scenario. And we do know we have references to them to go up until 628. Now, what we do know, all the artifacts from this part of the world and from that century are further up north. Nothing from down south. That's what I want to say. Now, let's then move over and let's look at this Umayyad in 661. So now we moved into 661. We're still in the 7th century. He comes to power. But look where he is. He's not in Mecca. He's not in Medina.
Yeah, it's always been puzzling to me. It's like you look at the Umayyad dynasty, and I'm like, gee, it's an Islamic dynasty. The righteous caliph, the 4 caliphs would have been down in Hijaz, Mecca, Medina. Why would the Umayyads be north to Damascus? Why would the Abbasids be a little bit to the east in Baghdad? What's up with that?
Exactly. And that's why I want to put you through this map here.
Yeah.
Because this is a map attributing what we now know of the 7th century. Where did Muawiyah live? He lived in Damascus. If Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali were all living way down in Medina, and we can't find any reference to Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. No, we can't find any reference on any inscription, on any coins. Right. Yet they controlled, we've been told, all the land from Tripoli in the west all the way to Afghanistan in the east. And then we get to Muawiyah, and suddenly we look at his kingdom. That's his kingdom right there. Where is this Tripoli to Afghanistan here? That's a very small kingdom. That's the Umayyad. That's Umayyad Caliphate from 661 up until 680. Now notice what's in their Caliphate. Petra is in their Caliphate. Ooh, isn't that interesting? So he controls Petra, and we do know that that is his sanctuary. So note how the Umayyads at first controlled not much more than what the Romans controlled. This is Arabia Petraea. This is what the Romans controlled. They did not control all this area. According to standard Islamic narrative, all this area from Afghanistan all the way to Tripoli was under their control. Not from what history is telling us, because there was no real need at that time to control all that area, because everything was happening right here. And all the trade coming to Petra came from here, the Gulf of Aqaba. They didn't need to go across land. They had the sea, the waterway to come up here. So how then did Mecca become important, for heaven's sakes? To answer that, we need to move to 30 years later. We need to go with the Caliph Abdul Malik and his governor Ibn Zubayr. And that's what we're going to do with the next episode.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. And I hope everyone is enjoying this. And let's just jump right into the next episode pretty soon here, because we want this train of thought to continue to make it easier for everyone to follow along how we can unpack all of this and make sense of it. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Sira International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.